Hello, my name's Beth. I am based in London and I make videos predominantly on knitting and crochet. And today I'm going to take you through everything I made in 2025. I have been putting off filming this video. I have literally been sitting in my living room with all of my finished objects laid out on my coffee table for about 24 hours now. Without further ado, I'm going to take you through some stats first off about what I made in 2025, and then I will take you through all of the items. I made quite a few presents this year, a few gifts, so I'm not going to be able to show everything to you in this video, but I will have pictures of the things that I don't have physically. Let's get into the stats. So over the year, I made a total of 41 finished objects. This is the first year that I've catalogued my projects, so I don't know comparatively if that's more or less than I did the year before. So that will be some interesting data the next year if I continue to catalogue my knitting and crocheting. 14 of those 41 items were garments. So I'm averaging over one garment a month, which, considering I made quite a few heavier weight garments as well as lighter weight garments, like there's pretty much a 50-50 split that I can see. I'm quite happy with that number. 9 of the items this year were socks. This does not surprise me. I was on a bit of a sock knitting kick this year. It's the first year I've ever made socks, and I loved making them. They were my preferred project to do on the tube, on public transport. I'm not surprised I made so many socks this year. I also made quite a few of them for Christmas presents, so I also have other motivation other than myself to be making socks. I'm slightly sad I didn't get to the one a month stage, but also some of my Christmas presents were not socks, and I swapped to doing those on the tube when I got closer to Christmas, so that does make sense. But maybe next year I can aim for 12 pairs of socks. 8 of the items were other accessories, so I'm classing these as mittens, hats, or bonnets. 4 of the items were pockets and pouches. I made 2 homeware items, and I made 4 Christmas decorations. The split between knitting and crochet was quite dramatic. So I knitted 36 items and I crocheted only 5. Which also makes a lot of sense to me. I do not tend to crochet garments, and I love knitting garments. Another interesting thing that I looked at as I was looking through my projects were the projects that I repeated. I didn't think I was the kind of person that liked to repeat patterns, but I repeated 7 patterns this year. This year I only repeated patterns twice, so there wasn't a standout pattern that I repeated more than twice outside of kind of Christmas ornaments. Let's start talking through what I made in 2025. Firstly, I have what I'm wearing. This is the Diehl blouse by Trust the Mojo. I made it out of Debbie Bliss Piper, which is a cotton viscose blend, and it's a DK weight. So for each of the patterns, I'm going to take you through some pros and some cons, and then we will swiftly move on because I obviously have quite a lot to talk about. So the pros for this one is I love the colour. And I absolutely love the yarn. It's such a lovely, summery, but cozy top. I also learned quite a lot on this project. There is a beautiful picot hem on both the bottom of the shirt and the arm. I also learned how to do an I-cord edge in this project. So I'm really happy with all the learning that I got out of this. The cons of this shirt is the closure. So as you may have noticed, the buttons do not want to stay buttoned. Now, I could sew the opening down, but I also like the option of wearing it open. I tend not to though, so I think I'm going to note a few fixes that I want to do, and I might fix some of these things altogether. But one of them is I think I might sew this button band down because it's such a beautiful top, and I don't wear it because I'm so worried about the buttons popping open, which they do frequently. That's the con for this shirt. It was a lovely start to the year. This was my first one that I finished in January, and it would be nice to wear it a bit more. It would be nice to make it a bit more wearable. Apologies if my hair gets progressively more frizzy over the course of this video. I will be taking things on and off my head, so it'll be fairly unavoidable. But next up is my jean sweater by Joanna Garish. or Colibri by Johanna. And I made this in Stylecraft DK, which is an 100% acrylic yarn. I mean, the pros of this is that it is beautiful. There's this really lovely looped lace detail which creates this wave pattern. I picked the colours because I had a cardigan in my stash that I had bought from the shop that I wear all the time and ideally wanted to replace with a jumper version. And I picked the acrylic because I wanted it to be machine washable. But the cons are that this is not a very nice yarn because it is acrylic. At the beginning of the year, I wasn't sure about different types of fibre. I had majority knit with acrylic in the past and hadn't started my journey into other fibres. So in my head, I was like, I want an everyday jumper that is washable that I can grab for. But unfortunately, it means it doesn't feel very nice. It also has pilled quite a lot. I have not prepped any of these jumpers before showing you, partly because I wanted to comment on the wear of them, but this looks really grubby now. Like, it looks like I've had it for years, and I don't super love that, especially because it's such a beautiful pattern. The actual written pattern of this is super hard to follow. I really struggled with it, and the fact that I have knitted something so beautiful that was so hard won in a fabric that I just don't really love is quite sad. I would like to re-knit this, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I could bear working with that pattern again. So it's on the maybe. What I would like to fix about it is I think for me it is a little too long. I do like my tops cropped quite a lot, and I think if it was just kind of even just at my belt, so about there, I think it would be a lot more wearable for me. Now, it has become quite a cozy jumper, so it's a maybe to fix. Also, this was the first time I ever did Italian bind off, and it's not for me. I don't love the look. I know it's probably because it was my first time and it doesn't look great, but I do not like the look. I prefer the look of just a regular bind off, and I didn't like the process. So I tried it once, I gave it a go. I did it on all 3 of the edges. This is a bit sad because I love the colour and I love the pattern, but the process was a nightmare and I don't super love the finished object. So there we go. My next object of 2025 are my very first pair of socks. These are the DK Weight Vanilla Socks by the Crazy Sock Lady. They are made in West Yorkshire Spinners Bo Peep. And I have they're both 2 slightly different colours. So I have a green one with a purpley pink heel, toe and cuff. And then I have a purpley pink one with a green heel, toe and cuff. The pros of these were they were my first pair of socks. I found a love of socks from making them. And because they were DK weight, they also knit up really fast. So it really got me into wanting to make more socks. These are the reason that I have the sock bug this year. They are incredibly worn because I wear these as slipper socks at home all the time, especially now it's gotten colder. They are just a fabulous pair of slightly thicker socks and I love them. The only cons for these were my first pair of socks, so they have some imperfections. I didn't quite know how to get the heel corner neat, so there's some holes there. But to be honest, for my first pair of socks, they're pretty good and they're functional. So yeah, not a huge con at all. Next up is my comfy cabled sweater by Trust the Mojo. I made this out of Drops Air and Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, both in the colour Sweet Orchid. I adore this jumper a lot. This is probably my most worn. I finished this in February, so it's had quite a lot of the year to be worn, and I wear it a lot. So the pros to this is I love the colour. I love the pattern, the kind of all over cables, and I also love the fit. It is like perfectly cropped, but still nice and roomy and cozy. I thought I had actually made this too long, but I think with where it has shrunk up a bit. The sleeves have gotten nice and baggy and comfy, and it is just a really nice everyday jumper. It's also one I get compliments on quite a lot, which is nice. The pattern is also great because of the thickness of yarn partnered with the cabled pattern. It's such a perfect mix of like quick knit but engaging charts. So it was such a great one to do. I really loved it. The cons are this jumper is super pilly. I don't know if you can see much of that, but under the arm, down the armpit, and I know it's probably just because I use it a lot. I'm also really afraid to shave, like to pill shave this one because of the alpaca fluff. So I need to find a way to just make it look a bit neat. The drops yarn is great, but it is an affordable kind of budget yarn, so it's not the nicest. And it looks well worn because it is well worn. So that's the only con, that I wish it stayed looking a bit neater for a bit longer. Next is my Swirl Slipover by Twin Knits. I made this out of Karen Simply Soft in the colour navy, which is just 100% acrylic. I made this out of some leftovers as well, so yay for scrap busting. I love this one. I'm going to turn around because it's a different pattern on the back, and I loved making this pattern. I found the cables really engaging and fun to work. So the pros were, this was super engaging, obviously. And I felt really accomplished after I finished it because look at it. It's stunning. I love these interlocking cables at the front, and it's just a really cute piece. I size this down so it also sits really close to the body, and I don't have anything else in my wardrobe that does this, that fits this. So it's just a really special piece to me. The cons are like similar to my jean sweater, is I don't love the feeling of the acrylic, and it's also not wearing very well. It's pilling and pulling quite a lot. This is actually the last garment I made for myself this year out of acrylic. I was really trying to get the last of it out of my stash, and I will especially not be using acrylics for cable designs in the future, or just anything that takes a lot of effort. I'm at the standard of knitter now where I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to make a wearable, beautiful piece. So I might as well invest in the yarn that's going to make me want to wear it or make it last longer. The other con about this garment is I made it a little too short. So I very specifically made this for a dress, so I'd wear it over the dress. But that does mean I can only really wear it with one garment. So if I wear it with jeans, for instance, it only just hits the top of my jeans. So if I wear a shirt or a t-shirt underneath, it pokes out, and I don't love that. It also obviously rides up a bit at the back when I'm moving about, so it's just not as wearable as I'd like it to be. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I would love to either remake this or do a similar pattern next year. I think I'm going to remake a version of this because I love it and I wish it was more wearable. The next item that I knitted in 2025 are my first fingering weight pair of socks. These are the Vanilla Socks by Suzanne Shorgan. I made them out of Shopple Wool's Sauber Ball in the colour Smoking Room. These are also quite worn because I have been wearing my wool socks quite a lot over the winter. I think for how long ago I made these, they are holding up relatively well. The heel is a little felted, but not awful. Not looking too bad at all. So very happy with the yarn. Pros are I adore the colour, especially the foot. The teal to green to purple gradient, absolutely loved. It also made it a little easier to knit because I was just trying to transition to the next colour. And the pattern's wonderful. The pattern really holds your hand through how to make your first sock, which I really appreciated because I had never made a fingering weight sock before. Brilliant pattern. Can't recommend enough. Because it also came out to the perfect size. So to have my first fingering weight sock fit me perfectly, I was just super happy with. The cons are I found out with this pattern that vanilla fingering weight socks are not for me. I found these so dull. I also made them to the length of the pattern, which is like 9 inches from cuff to starting the heel. I didn't realize that you could shorten socks. Again, they were my first pair, so I was following the pattern pretty religiously. I need a sock pattern with a bit more interest. I don't super love vanilla socks. Making them. Wearing them, great. And I think it really shows off the gradient yarn to its fullest. So yes, so all of the rest of my socks are either textured or have colour changes, so that's a spoiler for you there. The next item that I made in 2025 was my Lily sheer top. This pattern is by Irene Lynn, and I made it out of drops brushed alpaca silk in the colour Sweet Orchid. This was left over from my cozy keyboard sweater. The pros of this were I had never made an item with this construction before. It has these big sleeves and some really interesting shoulder increases. I'd never made anything like this, and I have never owned anything like it, and I love it. I think it is beautiful. I think it's just super unique. It's the perfect party top. I've worn it a few times this year at parties, so success. It has left the house. It has seen daylight. So I do struggle to find the right season to wear it. It is still quite woolly. Like it's quite furry and fibrous. So it's like I need the perfect spring day or an inside event to wear this, which is fine. I mean, that's like with most going out tops, right? It's hard to find a place to wear nice tops. The other thing is, this was the first pattern that I had encountered German short rows, and they took me a while to get my head around. Luckily, I've had lots of areas to practice them now, and I feel pretty good about them, but it did mean I had to start this top a couple of times before I was happy with how the German short rows went. Other than that, I think this is a very successful top and really inhabits a unique place in my wardrobe. Next up is my Darjeeling top by Trust the Mojo. This is made out of Sandnesgarn's Tin Lena, held double in the colour 1015, which is a cotton viscose linen blend. I love this top so much. It has the same double picot hem edge that the blouse does. The pattern is a delight to make. I really got into the Trust the Mojo's patterns. They always come with a tick list where you can tick the rows off as you go, and it just makes making the pattern super easy and like you just want to lock in and tick off those rows. So I really like the Trust the Mojo patterns. By doubling up the yarn, I got a really dense fabric because I did not want this in any way to be see-through. I absolutely love this one. I love the length of it. I cropped it quite severely because it is a summer top and I like my summer tops cropped. The cons are, because I wanted a very, very particular fabric, so, you know, this size knitting needles with the yarn held double, I was knitting this wildly off gauge. So I had to do a lot of maths to figure out what size I was going to knit to get this fit. And I didn't know if I had it right until the very last second. So I was kind of crossing my fingers that all of my maths had gone right and that this would turn out how I wanted. Thankfully it did. I'm very happy about that. But yes, having the stress of like, I don't know if this is going to turn out correctly was a little worrying. The other thing is, similar to the blouse, this button band was popping all the time. So because this is a top and not a shirt, I decided that I was going to sew this one down. And it's perfect. It's like solid. It's not going to fly open because I have just stitched this down. It does mean that I could have knitted this in the round, but I think the buttons and the like fake button band give a really nice look. So I'm not mad about it. Otherwise, I think a hugely successful summer top. Next up is my first repeat pattern. So I'm going to talk about the two together. I have two camisole number 9 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. Both of them are knit in Knitting for Olive's Cotton Merino, one in Dusty Blue Whale and one in Terracotta Rose. Pros are I absolutely adore the shape of this tank top. It doesn't have any like waist or bust shaping, so it makes quite an airy, easy top to wear. Again, I have severely cropped them. Both. This one is a little longer because, so the blue one was the first one I made and I was like, maybe I've made this a little too short. But for the summer, it's really nice. And I have lots of skirts which come up a little higher, which work really well with it. The cons of these is I wish they were machine washable. I wore these so much in the summer. As soon as they were off the needles, I was wearing these multiple times a week. And to have to set them aside after every few days to hand wash was getting frustrating. But to be honest, it's well worth it and probably has gone towards how well they're wearing. So I'll show these up close, but I am not getting any pilling yet under the armholes. And these get sweaty. These get like matted with deodorant stains and everything, but they are staying really nice. I am so happy with how these are wearing. This is one of the patterns that I will be repeating in 2026. I would like a cream one. The other slight con is by the time I hit the body portion in a tank top, I get bored. I love a crop, don't get me wrong, but I do think I have shortened, especially this one, a hair too short. But I just get so bored and I just want to finish it. So I need to learn to alternate. Once I get to the body, I need to introduce another project so that I don't get bored. But I still have two wonderful tank tops. Next up is my Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit. I made this out of an old jumper actually that I wasn't wearing very much and I pulled apart, which was made out of Sandnesgarn's alpaca silk. Because it is made out of an alpaca silk, it is so soft. One of the big pros of this is I made a jumper I wasn't wearing into a wearable piece. I was very happy with that. I'm really happy I made a more wearable garment, which I love. The colours are fab. I love this like dark green, dark pink, light pink thing going on. I bought this yarn originally in Denmark and I had no plan for it. I just went on like feel and colours. I took it home and it was really hard to find a pattern for it. But 2 tries in, I have now found a pattern that I love and I made a garment that I love. So it is super soft. I love the colours. It goes really well with the green trousers I have. The cons of this piece is working backwards with yarn I already had and trying to find a pattern for it is not the way I prefer to make things. I really struggled with that. And it's a skill I'd like to continue to learn because I have a bunch of scrap yarn that I'd like to use up. So working backwards from already owning the yarn is a useful skill to have. But I didn't super love it, especially because the previous garment already had stripes as well. So I was working with lots of tiny scraps of this yarn and I was desperate to find a pattern that would work. I wanted to keep the stripes and I wanted to use up as much of the yarn that I had as possible so that it didn't go to waste. It's super successful. I made something I'm really happy with. The other downside is that because this yarn is so soft and because I've now made a garment that is wearable for me, it is starting to pill and that makes me so sad because it's so beautiful. But under the arms, just where there's the most friction, I could look after this a bit. I can give it a shave. I can continue to hand wash it. But it's just one of those facts that when you make something that's lightweight and soft and drapey, that it is going to have less of a life than some of the hardier, woolly things that you make. I will continue to cherish this. I will continue to love it. But I will be aware that it probably has a shorter life than some of my other pieces. So my next finished item of 2025 I don't have with me. This is another pair of socks. They are the Petal Drop socks by Florence Miller. I made these out of Valley Yarn Huntingtons in the colour Harvest Orange, which is a merino nylon blend. Pros to this project was they are beautiful. Florence writes really lovely patterns, and this pattern is like an alternative to a vanilla sock for beginners. There's a video tutorial as well as a written pattern. I just used the written pattern. It was really great fun to make. The pattern is really engaging but also still memorizable, so it was super easy to knit up on the tube. Cons of these socks is the reason I don't have them with me is I gifted them to my mum. They were too small for me. The other con is I did not like working with the yarn. It was quite splitty and had a lot of breaks. So there were quite a lot of ends to weave in. I didn't enjoy the experience of working with this yarn. I don't think I will work with it again for socks at least. And the next project is also a pair of socks. These are the Arios socks by Lisa Schmidt. I also made these in Valley Yarns Huntington in Harvest Orange. I used up the last bit that I had of it for these socks, which is why they are short, which was a pro. So pro is I was able to use up a lot of the yarn, and the benefit of them being short is that they were quicker to make. This is another excellent pattern. I ended up making this pattern twice this year. This is another repeat pattern. The yarn has worn quite a bit. You can kind of see on the sole of this sock some of the pills, but I also wear these. I don't pull my punches. I'm wearing boots. I'm going for a quite long walk, so I'm not surprised that they are pilling the way they do. The other pro of these socks is they were the perfect fit this time. I tried a German short row heel for the first time, and that fit really nicely. I also made them the correct length so they weren't too short. The cons are the same as for the other socks. I continued not to enjoy working with this yarn. It continued to split, especially for lace patterns where you're doing the yarn overs and picking ups all the time. Doing that with a splitty yarn is just so frustrating. So yeah, same con as the previous socks. The next finished object I have, I actually made 4 of in quick succession, but I still count them as one project. These are the cabled chunky stockings by Christina Marie. I made them out of Katia's Big Merino, which is a superwash merino and acrylic blend. I made 2 following the pattern exactly with the cable motif, and I made 2 omitting the cable motif and adding some stripes and contrast colours. The pros was this pattern is very easy to do and very easy to modify. So I could make the stockings as much to pattern or off of pattern as I wanted, which was great considering I was very constrained by the amount of yarn I had, and I didn't want to make 4 of the same stocking. And I even got, I'm gonna do this one at a time, but I got my partner to put a little leather loop on so they hang up. I've got 4 hooks in the window, and for Christmas I hung them up in the window on the 4 hooks, and they're perfect. They did the job. I filled them with presents. They are great. They are functional. They were really quick to make. A useful and pretty project. The cons of this project is I accidentally made all 4 of them different sizes because I was not paying attention. I was not noting down how many rounds I was doing. I was relying on counting rows, and turns out I can't count very well. So all 4 of them are different sizes, not just on the leg, but on the foot, on the heel turn. So never mind, I don't have symmetrical stockings. My mum and dad came around for Christmas, and my mum, my dad, me, and my partner all got a stocking each. So perfect. Very successful project. Next up is the twist loop top by Other Loops. I made this out of Knitting for Olive's cotton merino in the colour Dusty Artichoke. This is another summer tank top. I obviously had a bit of a summer tank top moment. Not mad about it. I love all of them. I wear them all the time. The big pro of this is it's beautiful. I sized down the needle size to create a bit more of a close texture, and it's stunning. I don't know if I can get close enough for you to see, but this cable motif is just beautiful. The ribbing is great. It's neat. It's lovely. The con to that is knitting a tank top on 2.5 millimeters is horrific. It took me quite a while, and obviously it's quite short. Again, I love a cropped look, but I decided to stop knitting this one. I was like, I cannot. I know this could have done with another at least 1, but probably 2 more inches. I was so bored of the ribbing pattern of this in the round once I hit the body. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Also, because I was slightly off gauge, I had to be careful of my row gauge in the armhole and neck hole. Now, luckily, I read the pattern notes for other people that had done this pattern, and they mentioned that the armhole's quite deep, so I wasn't really worried about having enough room for here. I made some notes. Will I ever make this again? Probably not, but I made some notes. They're on my Ravelry page if you did want to size down, create this closer texture, and modify for adding some extra rows up top to compensate. I do love this one. I don't wear it as much as my camisole number 9s. I think maybe because it sits a bit close, it's a bit tighter, but it's stunning. It's one of the most beautiful pieces I made this year, and I absolutely love it. Next up is my next repeated pattern. I only have one of them to show you because the other one was a gift. They are the Songbird Mittens by Erica Hauser. I made these with Knitting for Olive Merino and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colour Blue Tit and Marzipan. I made both sets of mittens exactly the same, so in the same colours and everything. I made these for myself, and I made the second pair as a present for my friend for her birthday. The pros for this project were, this is my very first colourwork project, and oh my gosh, was it a success. Like, look how stunning these are. Also the other side, oh my gosh, like look at it. This is my first. I had never done colourwork before, ever. I can't believe I made these. So the big pro is that they are stunning and beautiful and works of art. Look at this little thumb detail, like come on. They're just beautiful. The pattern was also written really nicely as well. The chart was easy to follow. It was like nice and simple, which means all I had to concentrate on was the colour changing. So not a lot to distract me. The con for me for this project was I had to magic loop for the thumb and the top of the mitten. I don't like magic loop at the best of times, so doing magic loop and colour work kind of boiled my brain a little bit, and I did not enjoy it. It was successful. I managed it, and I managed it twice, so well done me. Very happy with these. The next project I have for you is the first few Christmas ornaments I made. I made the Mushroom Cuties by Diehl. I made 3 of these originally, but I have already gifted one. One of these is for me and the other one is for a friend. I made these out of scraps of the Sandnes Garn alpaca silk held double. Pros to this was they are quick, the instructions are really clear, and they give you extra instructions on like how to make these little embroidered circles and how to keep the structure of the mushroom so it doesn't like squish on itself. I don't have any cons for this one actually. They're great. It's a successful pattern. It makes a cute mushroom. Next up is one I will have to insert a picture of because they were another Christmas present. These are a pair of Jomo socks by Rachel Fletcher. I made these out of Gusto Wool's Echo and Langyarn's Yavol for the heels and toes. I made these as a Christmas present for my brother, and they turned out beautifully, if I do say so myself. The pros are this is an excellent pattern. It was the perfect mix of vanilla sock but with interest. So it has these cables that run down the outermost sides of the sock. I really wanted to pick a pattern that would show off the gradient yarn that I picked, but as I mentioned previously, I do not like vanilla socks. So this really still gave me a little bit of interest whilst keeping the yarn the like focus of the sock, which was nice. The cons of this was my first man-sized sock. My brother's foot is a lot bigger than mine, so it took me a bit longer. I also made these full length. They're full length ankle socks, so you know, no shorties here. So it was just quite long, but it then set me up. That I started off with my biggest sock first, and then I worked down. Next up is my Cumulus Blouse O-neck by Petite Knit. This is a repeat pattern. This one I'm calling my t-shirt modification. I made this out of Debbie Bliss Piper, which was also left over from my first garment of the year. And I think it turned out far more successful in this t-shirt than it did in the blouse. In fact, this t-shirt is still wet because I wore it last week and I took it off the airer to prep for this video. and it could do with another day to hang. It's still a bit wet, but you get the idea. I modified the gauge of this pattern so that I could use it for the DK weight yarn. And the pro of this is that it was super successful. I love this yarn in this style of top. It's beautiful and drapey and cropped, and this is like my favorite style of t-shirt. Like, I want 10 of these. Cons is because I heavily modified it, I made a lot of changes and I did not write enough notes. I really wish I'd made more notes because I want to do this pretty much exactly the same. And I don't know how, so I would have to figure it out again. I think I started with a size small, and then at some point I realised that that wouldn't be big enough, so I just increased up to a size medium instead. So I'm pretty sure I could figure it out, but I'm just annoyed at myself that I didn't make the notes while I was working on it. The next projects I have to talk about are the next repeat. I made 3 self-drafted pouches this year, and I have 2 of them with me to show you. I made one out of Sandnes Garn's Tin Line held double in 1015. I made one out of Knitting for Olives Merino and Soft Silk Mohair in Blue Tit, and I made one out of Knitting for Olives Merino and Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk in Sweet Orchid. All of these are lined, all of these have zippers. I have made these 2 for myself. I haven't given them away yet, but I have given one away to my mum as a birthday present. The pros for this project was I had a lot of fun practicing self-drafting. So I did the maths on, I had the zippers to start with. I didn't want to be messing around with zippers, so I figured out how many stitches around they needed to be. And then I had a lot of fun picking these different patterns out to make these pouches. They're great stash busters as well, and they make great presents. The cons are I haven't found something to do with these yet, and I love them, but they're just sitting with my craft supplies. They don't even have craft supplies in them yet. I'm not sure if I've made like a good size. This one unfortunately is quite drapey as well, which makes sense because it's made out of a cotton viscose linen blend. This one's a bit more sturdy because it does have that wool content in, but I don't yet know what to do with them. For now, they are sitting empty on my shelf, but I am determined that in 2026, I will use these. The next project is just a quick one. I don't have it with me because I made them as pockets from my mum's cardigan. They're made out of scrap cotton that didn't have any labels on in a fingering weight. It was a quick project that I made while I was home for the weekend, so I made them in collaboration with my mum. She picked out the colours and I just worked on it while I was there. It was fun to work with my mum on something, and she was able to sew them onto her cardigan and they look great. So no cons for this one. It's just a simple, quick project. The next project I made in 2025 was also self-drafted, and that is my self-drafted hanging planter. I made this out of Lily's Sugar and Cream cotton, which is 100% cotton. It's just a simple hanging basket that I put in the window and I put plants in. Pros are I already made up this pattern and I wrote notes, so it was really easy to follow along. I now have 3 of these, so in the spring and summer, they sit in my window and my plants can get a lot of light. This is perfect for the summer. It's very useful and it used up some of the cotton scraps that I had. The cons are this yarn isn't very nice to work with. It is rough, it's quite stiff, and my hands hurt quite a lot while I was crocheting this. I'm not sure I would like to get this yarn again. I have reached my second Christmas present of the year. These are a pair of Arios socks by Lisa Schmidt. I made them in Somerset Yarns sock base in Anastasia and Lang Yarns Jawohl for the cuff, heel and toe. These I made for one of the people that I date. Aren't they gorgeous? I really love the colour and pattern of these ones. So the pros are I still love this sock pattern. It is such a striking lacework design, and the colours work with it because they're also striking. This electric blue and hot pink are just great and really suit like the personality of the person I was making them for. I also got this yarn on Vinted. This was my first Vinted yarn purchase, and I've had a couple of successes over the year of Vinted yarn purchasing. The cons were this is another big sock, so I had to modify the pattern to bring it up to 76 stitches, and that was slightly harder to do on the lacework design. Not impossible. I made myself a little chart. It was great, but yeah, big socks. Took a long time, but very happy with them. The next two projects I made are another set of Christmas presents for the same person. I made 2 sets of cozy autumn socks by This Handmade Life. I made 1 pair in Life in the Long Grass in the colour Night, which is a merino nylon blend. And I made another set in a little viscose and elastane mix, which was quite cool. But a wool-free 4-ply sock. I made both of these for my sister-in-law and gifted them for Christmas. The pros for this pattern is it makes such a beautiful design. So it is a faux lace plait motif. So you're not actually doing any cabling, but this beautiful plait appears as you start to knit it, which is stunning. I really want to knit a pair of these socks for myself next year. I just really enjoyed the look of this pattern. I enjoyed it so much I was able to knit both pairs in fairly quick succession. The cons are, and this is a selfish one, my sister-in-law has quite similar sized feet to me, and knitting socks for people with the same size feet as you is sad because I wanted to keep these. I wanted to keep these so badly. Like with the other socks, with the socks I made for like my brother and my date, they were much too big, so the temptation to not give them away just never happened. But these ones fit me, so that was harder. We are really getting into the Christmas present vibe now. The next project I am going to talk about is my Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. I knit this out of Somerset Yarn sock base in the colour Christian, and I knit this for my dad for Christmas. The pros are I love this hat pattern. This is an excellent hat pattern. I knitted this predominantly on a trip to Switzerland to see my brother and sister-in-law, and it is very travel friendly, especially once you get past the increases and you're just knitting that tube in the round. Super easy travel knit. That was really helpful to pass the time on all the plane and train journeys. The cons are at this weight and gauge, it took a lot longer than I had hoped. I fixed this when I made the next Musselburgh that I made, but knitting the fingering weight yarn on 3mm needles was quite a slog. So just a heads up. So after all of that sock knitting for other people, I needed a break. So I made myself a pair of Satyr socks by Maja Carlson. These are made out of scraps of the Somerset yarns in Anastasia and the Life in the Long Grass in the colour Night. They are both a merino nylon blend. I am so happy that I got to make a pair of socks for myself in these colours because I loved the colours of both of those socks. So to have a little bit of them was really nice. The pros of this project was I modified these to make them a little simpler. I took away the Latvian braid at the top, so they just go straight from 2x2 rib into the colour work motif. I just knit them a little bit shorter than the pattern said as well. Again, I was worried about my yarn quantity, so I really got to make them as simple as I wanted. And I was also knitting these on the train quite a lot. I knit these at Unraveled. They have some nice memories for me. It was a nice project. The cons for these is I wish I had a little bit more pink yarn so that I didn't have to do the grey stripe at the bottom. They're fine. Like, it's fine. It gives it a slightly more sporty look, but I would prefer for it not to be there. That's my only con of these socks. They are comfy, they fit me well. I just wish I had a little bit more pink. It has gotten quite dark outside, but we still have like 10 more items to go, so I'm going to try and kick these out while I can. The next object I have for you is my Forget Me Not jumper by Florence Miller. I made this out of Knitting for Olive Merino, held double in the colours Marzipan, artichoke purple, and dusty violet. I think this is one of the showstoppers of the year. The pros for this top was this was my first colourwork garment, so really jumping off from the mittens. It was a lot of fun. The pattern's a lot of fun. Florence writes really good patterns. Considering this was my first colourwork garment, I was really happy with how the yoke came out. And I even added some flowers on the sleeves as well, which I think turned out really successful. Cons for this project was that I messed up on the sizing the first time round. I went for a size smaller and I got all the way to finishing the yoke and joining in the round. I popped it on over my head to see how it fit and it was just too small. So I had to rip it all out and start from scratch. So that was annoying, but it did mean I had another go at this yoke. In the end, I got the garment I wanted out of it and it's much more roomy, it's comfortable. I'm really happy with it. Next up, I have some mini jumper ornaments by Svenja Knits. I made 7 of these out of various fingering weight yarns held together or DK or just whatever scraps I had. I made 4 of them for my mum for her birthday. I made 1 of them for a colleague for her birthday and I made 2 for myself. The pros are this is such a great scrap buster. They make really cute little jumpers. I'm very happy with how they turned out. And I also had a lot of fun making the designs. I'll put the ones that I made for my mum up here and the one I made for my colleague. I had so much fun picking designs for the people in my life. Cons for this project is not all the yarn works well. So I have this grey one, which I made out of some scraps of alpaca I had, and it's just too drapey. It doesn't hold its shape, whereas this purple one I made out of scraps of Drops Air and Drops Brushed Alpaca, and it's much stiffer and just holds its shape better. So I was finding out over the year which yarns work and which don't. But I've got one good one for myself, and all the ones I made for other people were also made out of more wool content rather than alpaca. So just a note for myself for next year. Next up is another Christmas present. I made the Spoonie mittens by Skein Knits for my mum for Christmas. I made them out of lichen and lace sock base in the colour bouquet, and the contrast colour is a Lang Yarns Yarvol as well as an Isaga Alpaca 1. Pros to this pattern, similar to my Songbird mittens, they are just stunning. There is something about a colourwork mitten that really just hits as just an artistically beautiful piece. And my mum really enjoyed them, so a successful project. They were very engaging to make, they were also a fairly fast knit, and they made a great gift. The cons for these is for this pattern, the sizing is quite difficult because you don't change the stitch count for each size, you change the gauge. So for a bigger size, you use a bigger set of needles. So it's really hard to figure out which needle size you need without making a ton of gauge swatches. I also found with the needles I needed for the right size, the yarn was quite gappy, which is why the alpaca one's in there, because the contrast colour just seemed really thin and I wanted to bulk it up. So once I found the needle size that I needed for the size I wanted, I added the extra lace weight yarn and it seemed to be successful. We're at the home stretch, guys. This is the last garment. I've lost the light. My neighbours are being silly outside with their cars, so my voice is gone. We're gonna push through. We have like 6 items left, and this is the last garment. This is my Minot cardigan by Louisa Rekov. I made this out of Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo in the colour S84 and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colour Dusty Rose. The pros of this project were that this is my first cardigan and I learnt so much. The detail on this cardigan is like a cable and half fisherman's rib, like a half brioche. It was so cool. I really enjoyed making this. I also did a double knit button band for the first time, which was really fun, and I learned how to sew buttons on properly with a shank so that it doesn't pull the button band out of alignment too much. I think this is beautiful. Similar to my Forget Me Not jumper, I think this is one of the showstoppers of the year. Big pro is that I learned a lot doing it, and I also think it looks very good for a first cardigan that I have knit. It's just a really cozy, comfy piece, and I think I got the sizing right as well. The crop is perfect, the length of the arms is perfect. The only con that I can think of is the button band could be a bit neater. You can probably see at the bottom it does splay out a little bit, and I think each of these buttonholes I did slightly differently, so they are not uniform, but they're hidden when it's buttoned. So you know what? It's none of my business. It's none of my business how the buttonholes look when it's buttoned up. Also, for my first attempt at a cardigan and a button band, I'm happy with it. It looks great. It looks really good. So the con isn't even really a con. I love this garment. Okay, I may have lied. I have one last garment, but it's a vest, so does it really count? So my next project is the Stockholm Slipover by Petite Knit. I made this out of strictly hand-dyed yarns, alpaca merino nylon base in the colour Artemis, and Creative Anarchy's Suri fluff in a mystery colour that I got in the sale bin. And together they partnered to make this beautiful turquoise piece. I am quite sad that the light has gone because I'm not doing it justice with the light that I have, but it's pretty beautiful. So pros are, I love the colour and I love the fabric. It is so soft. The strictly hand-dyed yarns, alpaca merino as the base and the Suri fluff on top just makes this gorgeous, squishy, drapey fabric. It really fits the gap in the wardrobe that I had, so I really wanted a vest to go with my navy one that I talked about earlier, but that would partner with more of my pastel coloured shirts and outfits. Cons are, I don't love the shape of it. I think the shoulders are a bit wide for me. It kind of has a bit extra stuff in the arm, and it kind of cinches. It does this weird bubbly mushroom thing at the bottom. A couple of things I am considering with either, I'd like to make another vest, but also maybe even to fix this one, is taking out the bottom ribbing and turning it into a split hem. And then I have a little bit of space at the sides for it to do its thing without it coming in. So that'd be nice. And then on the next one, I'm also thinking about narrowing the shoulders slightly so that they're not as wide. I do love this one, but it just doesn't quite fit on my body the way I wish it would. So I obviously was not done working with this yarn, because the next project I have is a baby bear bonnet by Pernille Larsen of Knitting for Olive. I made this in exactly the same yarn combination as my vest, so the strictly hand-dyed alpaca merino nylon blend and the Creative Anarchy Suri fluff. It's adorable. Pros to this project are it's super cute. I love the little ears. It was a really quick knit and a great scrap buster. I will definitely be keeping this pattern in my arsenal for scrap projects in the future. The only con I had with it really is that it was an unusual construction, so it just took me a little while to get my head around it. But now I've done it once, I think it'll be super easy to just kick one out if I needed to. The other slightly sad con is I don't have anyone to give this to yet. So my plan was to start building a little stash of baby knits, because I have a few people in my life who are either trying or are lined up to adopt, or just in some way are adjacent to a baby. And I'd like to have a couple of things ready to go so that I don't feel pressure. I really want to gift knit for babies, but I don't want to feel pressure if they suddenly arrive. So I'd like a little bit of a stash. They're also just great stash busters. It's nice to try something a little different, and I'm pretty sure there will be more of these in 2026. The next project I want to talk about is my 100 Stitch Snood by No Frills Knitting. I made this out of Rosie's Moments sock blend, which is a merino nylon blend, and I made this for my partner for Christmas. I modified the 100 stitch snood, both for the gauge of the yarn that I had, but also I casted this on with Judy's Magic Cast On and knitted until I finished my ball of yarn, and then I folded it. So it is actually double lined and seamless, so I Kitchener stitched with the Judy's Magic Cast On edge. That's the big pro, that I have made this double lined. My partner rows in the outdoors, so often gets quite cold, and he really likes merino things that are also washable, so I thought he would really like this snood. I really enjoyed how this striped. I'm going to take this off so I can show you the stripes. I really like how this yarn striped up. I usually am not a huge fan of self-striping yarns, but I just thought this was great. I think it's perfect for the cold weather. This made a really successful gift. The cons are not a big con. I had to do a small amount of maths to figure out how many stitches I needed to keep the circumference correct. But because I'd already done the Musselburgh hat on the same size needles as I was going to make this on, I just took the gauge from that pattern, and then I didn't have to do a gauge swatch, so bonus. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Next up are my last Christmas ornaments of the year. I made a few Christmas stars by Claire M. I made 4 of these, so 2 I got to keep for myself, and 2 I made as presents. I made these out of leftover fingering weight yarn, held double. So this one is the Lichen and Lace, and this one is another Somerset yarns. Pros are, this is a lovely pattern. It's really quick to crochet, easy to modify for gauge, because this is not the gauge that was in the pattern. I also modified these slightly, so the pattern is just for a single star. So I made 2 stars, and then I sewed them together with a small bit of stuffing just to like plump them up a bit. They were super quick and actually make really good gifts. No cons for these. These are a super quick Christmas crochet project. My last crochet piece of the year is my Sunburst Tweedy Cushion by Beta Jezik. I made this out of Knitting for Olive, merino and cotton merino scraps, so you might recognize some of the colours from the other projects that I've been talking about. The pros for this was such a fun project. I enjoyed making each of these squares, picking out the colour combinations. I took some of the squares to work with me while I did evening shifts. I made a lot of them when I had my date over, and they would help me pick combinations. I envisioned this being a longer term project. Like, I thought I'd be taking this into 2026, but I ate this up. I loved working on this. This has made such a successful piece. I think it looks really nice, and it really goes well with the decor in this room. The con of this is I did not have enough of the blue yarn, and originally I was envisioning this as an 100% scrap project. But once I decided that the outlines were all going to be blue, I then got very attached to wanting all of the squares to have a blue outline. That was it. I was then committed to buying more of this blue colour. I'm not mad about it. It fits in really well with this room, and I think if I chose differently, I wouldn't like this cushion as much. So a good decision, even if it was mildly annoying. Also, I think the cushion insert is slightly too big, or more accurately, I think the squares that I made are slightly too small. Now, this does make, as you can probably tell, for quite a beautifully plump cushion, and the squares stretch really nicely over it, but it made it so annoying to crochet the cover around the cushion. I'm happy at the finished result. I wasn't so happy while I was doing it. The next is my last repeat pattern of the year. I made myself a Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. I made this out of Somerset yarn sock base in the colour Mr. and Mrs. And I partnered it with a Lay Family Yarns Majestic Fluff, which is an alpaca silk cashmere blend. So this is quite a luxurious hat. Like I alluded to with my other Musselburgh hat, because I paired these yarns together, I was able to knit this hat on a slightly bigger needle size, which made the process go so much faster. I ended up knitting this over a long weekend while I was in Germany. I much preferred knitting it on this gauge. And I love the colour and I love the fluff. Now that I've blocked it, this is super soft. When I finished it in Germany and I just wore it straight away, it was a little rough on my forehead and I was slightly worried. But when I got home and I blocked it properly, I let it soak, I laid it out, it has turned into the softest hat and I am really happy with it. I've worn it a few times since and it is not itchy on my forehead. It's made a really nice hat. No cons at all. This is, if I was to do a Musselburgh hat again, I would do it like this. I would do it with it doesn't have to be a fluff, but I would do it on more closer to a DK weight than a fingering weight. And I would do it on 4mm needles again. And we are on to my last project of the year. I haven't actually tried this on. I'm quite excited. It has not been dry for many days. It really snuck under the wire. I did not think I was finishing this, but here we go. I'm gonna pop it on for you. This is my Sadie Snuggle Snood by Famke, or Mippy the Label. I made this out of Creative Anarchy's Comfort range, which is their 100% superwash merino in the colour Toe Beans, and Knitting for Olive's Soft Silk Mohair in the colour Dusty Rose. I think this is beautiful. The pros of this project were that this project was super engaging, to the point where I had to be quite awake to work on it. It did take a lot of brain power to work on, but the pattern is excellently written. It has little diagrams with like arrows that show you where you're supposed to be, where you want to pick up, arrows in what direction you want to pick up. I really enjoyed the pattern. I will take this off so I can show you the motifs, but it's so beautiful. There's cabling, there's lace, there's diamond motifs. It's just got everything. It's really soft. The combination of yarns I used mean that this is a really soft piece. So you have the cable running down the edge of the hood and the ties. And it's just a beautiful piece. It's so soft. It's so lovely. Cons are, I think I made the hood a little too big. I misread the pattern by an inch, so it's probably about an inch too big. And the other thing is, I don't know what to do with my hair when I wear this, because I don't want to wear it when my hair is up because it will bulge, it will pull the hood out of shape. But then when my hair is down, it's at the length where it's already around my neck, so I kind of have to bunch it to the back, but then it's like sticking out of the hood. So I haven't figured out how to wear this yet. In theory, it was a good thing to have. I really wanted a scarf with a hood that I could like put up and down. But in reality, I A, don't know if this is the right size for me, and B, don't quite know how to wear it yet. TBC on this one if it is successful, but it is beautiful and it was wonderful to make, and I don't have anything like this. So that was all the items. There was quite a lot, and a nice range, I would say, throughout the year, and a good mix of personal projects and gift knits and homeware. Thank you so much for sticking around while I go through everything I made in 2025. It is now dark outside, so I hope this footage came out okay. I hope you had a good experience and maybe you took some ideas away with you while you were looking through my things. I hope you had a very peaceful, festive season and a great new year. We are in January now, so the next video I'll be making is my 2026 plans, and I'm really excited to film that video for you. But for now, I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully. Bye.